call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. All council members are present. We had an agenda that was presented in your packets. I know we had one additional thing added this evening. We'll add that to unfinished business item B, which is our Sauk River Watershed District Plant Management Project Agreement and Plan. So we'll move that into item B there, and we'll discuss it at that time. Is there any other changes to the agenda as presented, or additions? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with that addition?
So moved.
Motion by Warren. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. Is there any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. We have our minutes from our March 5th meeting. Is there any additions, changes, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Warren. Any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor. This time's our public open forum. Is there anybody here who wishes to address the council? Anybody here wish to address the council? Any students wish to address the council? All right. Moving on then. We have no public hearings, reports and presentations. Brian, Police Department monthly report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Activity report for February 2014. Some of the numbers we had 8 alarms, we had 11 personal assist, 17 assists for other agencies, 5 child custody issues, 20 matter of informations, 14 medicals, 10 vehicle accidents, 16 suspicious calls. I think 9 of them were suspicious activity, 1 was phone, 2 suspicious smells, and 4 suspicious vehicles. We had 165 verbal warnings. 89 of those were for other violations, 40 were for headlights, 5 for seatbelts, 29 for speed, and 2 for stop sign. We had a total activity of 415. If you compare that to 2013, we had 22 less ICRs. We had 87 less warnings given out and 109 total less activity. And compared to January, we're down 34 for ICRs, down 24 for warnings, and down 58 for total activity. Then in February 11th through the 13th, I went to the Emergency Managers Conference held in Minneapolis. It's a good conference. The first day was one whole day of a required class that I need, which is called G191 EDC/ICS interface. So what basically that is a course that helps you or shows you how to improve your communication and coordination between the Emergency Operations Center and the Incident Command Center. So very good class, very informative, a lot of stuff to take in during that course. Then the next the day I was in a couple breakout session classes for discovering adaptive leadership and emergency management overview stuff too. Then the third day was we had a keynote speaker for cybersecurity, which is pretty amazing to listen to this guy for the cyber security for the nation, and he had a lot of information, so that was pretty interesting. And then to end the day, they had Dr. George Smith. He's the medical director for the city of West in Texas. If you probably remember back in April of 2013, that fertilizer plant that exploded and registered 2.1 on the Richter scale. So he gave his background on what they did when that happened. And so that gives a person some pretty good insight when you get it from the people that were disasters actually happened. So a lot of insightful stuff to take in, and a very good conference. So it's good to bring back that knowledge.
Well, thank you, and I know I'm interested to hear how those conferences go. It sounds like it's very informative and very well attended, I'm assuming, as well.
Yes, it was about 300 to 400 people.
Wow, good. So, well, thank you for the update. Does anybody have any questions for Brian in regards to the conference or his report? Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on then to the park board report. Vicki?
Okay, the Park Board met in their regular session on Tuesday, March 11th. They discussed and reviewed the splash pad funding progress regarding some grants and other funding that they're seeking. They also talked about the size and scope of the proposed shelter and restroom facility. They are recommending submittal of a grant application to the Minnesota DNR. That is on your agenda tonight for approval. They are revisiting the internet expansion at the campground, and they're requesting some on-site testing to see if the proposal is really what we need to have. They discussed campground and park repairs that are going to be completed in 2014. They are going to recommend that the fish cleaning house be open during daytime hours again this year from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. That seemed last year to help with some of the issues that we were having there, although they will have to replace one of the grinders. The one grinder toward the end of the year just kind of gave up the ghost, and so that has to be replaced. And we also received a request by a student to repair the half pipe at the skateboard park. About 4 years ago, we did a temporary repair with the surfacing, and so we're looking at doing a more permanent repair to that. And so there's the one item of action tonight, which will be requesting approval to submit the grant application to the Minnesota DNR.
All right. Any questions of Vicki in regards to the park board? Anything to add on the park board? No? All right. Thank you, Vicki. Move right on in then to the airport board report.
The airport board, they had their regular session on Wednesday, March 12th, and this was actually, this would be their regular time. In February was a special meeting to kind of coordinate with the work that we're doing on the master plan. This was the first meeting of Keith being back on the airport board, so they were glad to see him there. They discussed the protocol for keeping the driveway, runway, and taxiway open for the ambulance because of the no longer having the helipad temporarily at the hospital, and so they're working extra to make sure that they keep that open for them. They are recommending approval of the airport layout plan to the City Council, and that'll be coming at, I think, the May meeting when we'll have the final copies of that. But that'll be the final ALP that'll be submitted to the FAA, and after that's approved, then they would be eligible again to apply for grants in the next fiscal year. They discussed minimum specifications for private hangar construction if someone wanted to build a private commercial or private hangar. They discussed uses allowed in the clear zones, and also they received information on the Minnesota Council of Airports. They're having a conference coming up in Bemidji, and I think we have 2 members that are actually going to attend that this year. Information only for the meeting tonight. There's no action requested, but we will have that ALP approval at a future meeting.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions for Vicki in regards to the airport? No? Thank you, Vicki. Okay, we'll move right into our action items then. 7A, Police Secretary Step Increase Evaluation. Vicki?
We do have Police Secretary Melissa Kleinschmidt. She's been with the city 6 years, as of yesterday, actually. I do have the excerpt from her review that was submitted by Brian Fredericks. I can read that, or otherwise you had received that in advance. And Chief Fredericks does have a recommendation that we award the step increase from step 6 to step 7 for Melissa, effective March 17th. And if you want me to read the excerpt, I certainly will.
Yeah, why don't you?
Okay, it says, Melissa continues to exceed performance in all categories. Melissa knows her job and her role within the department. Melissa encounters a busy workload, and she is always able to complete data entry, officer reports, and statement transcriptions in a timely manner. Melissa does a great job in forwarding officers' reports to the numerous other agencies that are requesting these reports and often wanting them right away, such as in-custody arrest reports, etc. Melissa has good knowledge of data practice, assuring that only the correct information is being released. She's always keeping her own filing system and form system in good order, which keeps it easy for the officers to access it. Melissa continues to provide good input on many job-related topics and takes initiative with many issues in her field of work that arise and gets them completed on her own. Melissa also stays updated with the many constant updates that occur in her field. She works well with the public on the phone and in person and is able to answer their questions or refer them to an officer or agency that can. She gets along with her coworkers within the department, City Hall, and other agencies that work out of our office. Melissa has also been a great asset in assisting me in keeping my day organized. I interrupt Melissa several times throughout the day to have her complete numerous tasks, and she's always willing to do that without complaint. I've asked her to complete numerous tasks throughout the year and has always completed in a timely and professional manner. She's very dedicated and professional employee. This was submitted by Chief Brian Fredericks.
Thank you. Any questions of Vicki? I think that definitely outlines Melissa's job performance. I know I've had an opportunity to work with her for a lot of years, and I would certainly echo the comments that Chief Fredericks has noted here. I've always had a very positive feedback from the folks that I visited with throughout the community as well. So is there a motion to approve awarding the step increase from step 6 to step 7 of $21.76 for Police Secretary Melissa Kleinschmidt effective March 17th, 2014?
So moved.
Motion by Dave, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. Any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Thank you. Moving on, action item 7B. We have two mayoral proclamations this evening, and Vicki, I'll let you give the overview and I'll read the proclamation.
Okay. The first one is the National Service Proclamation. The Corporation for National and Community Service, the National League of Cities, the City of Service Organizations, and mayors nationwide are joining together to recognize the impact of volunteer service on April 1st, 2014, which is known as Mayor's Day of Recognition for National Service. The Central Minnesota Foster Grandparent Program is an excellent example of volunteerism in our area. From September 2013 to February 2014, 11 volunteers served as foster grandparents at Holy Family School, Pumpkins and Monkeys Preschool, and Sauk Center Elementary and High Schools. They work one-on-one with students who need extra help with reading, spelling, or math skills. They also serve as mentors to youth who need extra emotional support. I have them listed as Lila Burling, Lynn Janowick, Marilyn Eulenkamp, Myrna Bowman, Roberta Olson, Betty Van Havermat, Anna Mae Dieters, Betty Stocker, Frida Vanselo, Rose Eklund, and Bernice Eulenkamp. And then please join in recognizing them for their service on Mayor's Day of Recognition on April 1st, 2014.
Thank you, Vicki. And the proclamation reads this, and of course there's no action item this evening. This is just for the record of these two proclamations that we will be going through. The first one is, as Vicki stated, the National Community Service. So whereas the Mayor's Day of the Recognition of National Service, whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenges, and whereas National Service participants serve in more than 60,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being, and whereas the Central Minnesota Foster Grandparent Program is an excellent example of how volunteerism benefits the community, with more than 200 local seniors serving as foster grandparents in our schools, Head Starts, and other local nonprofits. And whereas 11 individuals have served as foster grandparents in the Sauk Center schools, including Holy Family School, Pumpkins and Monkeys, and the Sauk Center Elementary and High Schools. And whereas the Corporation for National and Community Service shares a priority with mayors nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities, City of Service, and mayors across the country to recognize the impact of service on the Mayor's Day of Recognition for National Service on April 1st, 2014. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Brad Kirkhoff, Mayor of Sauk Center, do hereby proclaim April 1st, 2014 as National Service Recognition Day, and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our city, to thank those who serve, and to find ways to give back to their communities. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Sauk Center to be affixed on this 19th day of March 2014. So thank you, and thank them volunteers for serving and all that they do. And the second proclamation that I've asked Vicki to put on the agenda is the Minnesota Mayors Association has asked cities consider authorizing a mayoral proclamation recognizing National Donate Life Month in April, which is pretty important, I think, across the country. Here's how it reads. The City of Sauk Center, Minnesota Mayor Proclamation, an observant of National Donate Life Month. Whereas April is considered National Donate Life Month, and whereas organ, eye, and tissue donation is a gift which extends hope and healing to those in need, and whereas nearly 115,000 Americans and approximately 3,000 people in Minnesota are waiting for a life-saving transplant, and whereas there is a serious shortage of transplantable organs in the United States, resulting in only 28,000 transplants and nearly 6,000 preventable deaths each year, and whereas one organ, eye, and tissue donor can save or improve the lives of up to 60 people. And whereas Minnesota is a leader in registered organ, eye, and tissue donors, any person of any age can become a donor by indicating their preference on their state ID or by registering online through either Donate Life Minnesota or LifeSource, one of America's leading organ procurement organizations. Now therefore, I, Mayor Brad Kirkhoff, do hereby proclaim April 2014 as National Donate Life Month. And I urge all residents of Sauk Center to mark this day by taking the time to consider becoming an organ donor in order to help others continue to celebrate life. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Sauk Center, Minnesota to be affixed on this 19th day of March 2014. Thank you. We will move on through our action items. We are in 7D, approve HRA appointments.
We have one HRA board opening that the HRA does not, theirs is effective March 31st or April 1st each year. They don't run the fiscal year like the other city boards do. And we have one HRA board appointment which has been requested to be refilled by Bob Polipnik. He has been on that board for many years. It is a 5-year term which would become effective April 1st, 2014, ending March 31st, 2019. And we have included his request for nomination consideration in the packet, so you can see what other things he's been involved with, such as being the mayor on city council and hospital board and the planning commission. So he's kind of served throughout the city, and he likes to serve on the HRA board, and he would like to continue to serve.
Thank you, Vicki. Does anybody have any questions? No. Is there a motion then to appoint Robert Putnick to the position of the HR board for a 5-year term effective April 1st, 2014 and ending March 31st of 2019?
So move.
Motion by Warren. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Keith. Any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Bob has been serving the community for a lot of years, so I've visited with him recently and have thanked him for, again, extending his time to the city on the HRA board. Moving on to 7E, approve resolution 2014-12 authorizing the grant application. Vicki?
Yes, as part of the ongoing fundraising for the park improvements, including the splash pad at the multi-purpose park, the committee is seeking a grant through the Department of Natural Resources Outdoor Recreation Grant Program. The application requires the City Council provide support for the application by resolution. The grant request is for $100,000. And so what we're asking tonight is for the City Council to approve Resolution 2014-12, supporting the grant application to the Minnesota DNR.
Any questions? It's just another way for us to seek additional funding to move forward with our multi-purpose park. That's great. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2014-12, supporting the grant application?
So moved.
Motion by Keith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Warren. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. All right, we'll move into our unfinished business, which may have an action item on this B if we chose to, so don't be offended if we are in unfinished business. Does not mean we cannot act on that as well, though it's not in an action item. Moving on, unfinished business 8A, sign retro reflectivity policy.
If you recall, over the years, we've kind of briefly discussed the sign retroreflectivity and different laws that were going through Congress and trying to define what kind of reflection was required on all our signs. They finally come to conclusion on their requirements, and one of the requirements is that by June 13th, 2014, all agencies, including cities who maintain roadways open to public travel, must adopt a sign maintenance program designed to maintain traffic sign retroreflectivity at or above specified levels. And that just basically describes how light is reflected from a surface and returned to its original source. Anybody that's driven down the highways and you put their brights on some of those really white signs, you see that is what they're looking for. Is it's got glass beads in it and it has optimum reflectivity. And so that is really what we're looking, optimally what they want over a period of years. The only requirement that we have right now is that we develop a policy on how we're going to go about addressing the issue. It's not that we're going to say at this point how many we're going to do or how fast we're going to do it. It's just that we're going to address it and what is the process we're going to do. So the first thing we need to do, or what I'm recommending, is that we send that to the policy committee so they can review the different drafts that we have and come back with a recommendation to the city council. And within that policy, then we'll have some proposed timelines of how we would address it. So my request tonight is just to send it to the committee.
Very good. Is there any questions? Does anybody have any comments they want to add to that? I know we'll go to the policy committee. That's fine. Okay, general consent that we would send that to draft policy to the policy committee?
Yep.
Yes? So general consent, we'll move that on to the policy committee for their review for recommendation back to the council. All right, we will move on then to our attachment that was handed out, the Sauk River Watershed District Big Sauk Lake Aquatic Plant Management Project, project number 2003-1, project agreement and operation plan. Vicki?
If you recall, a month ago we had a presentation by the watershed regarding the aquatic plant management on Sauk Lake, and the city council sent it back for revision of 3 items. And on the agreement that you have in front of you, it would be item under section B. We had requested that if no plan is submitted for the next year, there'll be no activity for the next year. And you'll see that they added a sentence: if the association and city do not develop an annual work plan and budget and submit them to the board for review by July 30th, the board will take no action and provide no funds for implementation in the following year. So that's how they addressed the part about if no plan is submitted, there'll be no work the next year. The next item that had a discussion was under item F, and that had to do about that we would spend the reserves first before we started levying money or assessing money. So at the end of that section, they said the district shall not certify any assessments until the balance in the current project fund is sufficient to meet the approved budget and reserve. So the approved budget's what we approved, and the reserve was always half of what your approved budget is. So, if we approved a budget of $30,000, then we'd have to have $45,000 in there the next year before they would assess. So they have to deplete the funds before they would take that step. And then the third item was that you'd recommended a sunset in 10 years. That's been added as item I, and it says, unless agreed otherwise by the parties in a future agreement, the project continuation contemplated in this agreement shall cease after 10 years. If no agreement on project continuation is made, the district shall abandon the project. So that was our 10-year sunset. So those were the 3 items that you sent back to the watershed for review. There's one additional item, and we had a little discussion on that, and after I reread it, under item K, where it talks about that we may purchase our own equipment, and if we do that, we have to provide the insurance. But it also says if we purchase equipment or employ employees or consultants. I don't know if consultants means consultants for legal or contractors for spraying, and whether we want that consultant word in there, I'm not sure. That was the only other thing that, because Warren had brought up the insurance last time, and then we talked briefly about it tonight. But that sentence is really meant that if we decide to buy equipment or we decide to have employees, that we have to indemnify, or we have to provide that insurance and protect the watershed. And I know there was also talk about eliminating that one because we have no intention of hiring employees or buying equipment. But the association may decide to.
Right. A couple questions then. Does K and L contradict each other? If you look at K, it states we will have to add additional insured up to $1 million and add the district evidence of liability insurance. And then L says the association and city agree to indemnify and hold the district harmless.
I don't know
So
if
they want us to add, if we have employees or consultants and have $1 million of insurance, but then the next thing says that they're held harmless. If any
Basically,
claims
the whole
arise.
harmless part of it is if we're sued, that we agree to take the charge on that and we hold them harmless. The other part is insurance. If we have equipment or employees and do something, then we make sure to have insurance. And then the second part is, and we also agree that we're going to take the lead role and not implicate the watershed in any way. So I think the hold harmless is pretty standard. And that's only out of actions of us or the association. So they're 2 different things, but they really go hand in hand. One has to do with litigation, and one has to do with insurance claim.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Anybody have any questions?
I have a comment.
Okay.
G
Yes.
says neither the city nor the association shall, commit any contracts without first getting the approval of the district. And I guess I was thinking that there were 3 parties in here for the purpose of having 3 parties agree. If one of those parties can go to the district and approve a change, that seems to circumvent the whole idea of having 3 people agree to a project plan. I'm not in favor of that.
Vicki, do you understand?
I guess neither the city nor the association shall obligate funds or commit to any contract or action not contained in the work plan or provided for in the budget without first receiving the approval of the district. So we have to always have it in our budget from this year. I would have to set up what we're going to spend next year, and we can't do anything other than what we pre-planned to do. But then it says without first, it looks like they're leaving an opening for a change if we
It looks to me like
receive
you
the
could
approval
get a
of the
change.
district.
Come to the district and say we want to do something different, and if the district approves, we're good to go. You don't need the approval of the third party.
And
I'm
that
not in
language
favor of
wasn't
that.
changed. That was the same language as
And
we
that
had last
probably
time.
is what was there before, but I'm looking through this thinking, approval of all parties would work for me.
So we could say without receiving approval of the district, receive approval of all parties?
And that would
Yeah.
cover it.
Yeah.
Anybody else see anything?
I guess I'd just like to, I kind of agree with Brad's first statement too, that they're K and L, I think they contradict each other. If the district is to be named, but they're not helping to pay for the insurance?
Oh, no, they're not. That's only if we buy equipment or we hire somebody.
Okay.
Or if and likewise with the association, if they buy equipment or they hire somebody, they're responsible for the insurance and hold the watershed harmless, is basically what that is.
The way I read it, and we've discussed this insurance thing a lot, but the way it looks to me is if they want to be named as insured, basically, so if there's any suits or anything like that where there's money being received, If we go after somebody for not doing something and there's a payment, their name is insured as they get part of it. Where L, if it go in the other direction where it could cost them money, they don't want nothing to do with this. You know, it's definitely protecting themselves.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I'm not so sure that we need another form of government to sit there and hold our hand when I think the association and the city could probably do it themselves.
But it isn't, I mean, Kay is saying if there's a claim, they are making sure that they're on that so they're not liable. They're not going to receive any funds from that. Just that they would be under the umbrella of that insurance policy as it relates to this particular equipment or whatever is named in here. So, and I'm not quite sure how they would receive any money on that. Is that what you said?
Yeah, basically, if they're named as an additional insured.
Right. They're not going to receive money, but they're just
for some
covered.
reason, we'd have to go into a claim where we have to recoup funds. If they're claimed as an insured, they have a right to have something out of it, is the way I read it.
Well, I think I would look at that and say they would have a right to recoup their cost if they had incurred some and it was underneath a particular claim that came about from an action that had either happened or would have happened based on a claim submitted. I don't know that it would mean that they would be entitled to anything unless there was something that warranted they to have a specific loss. Warren, I think, is how I read that. And I think, I do agree that, you know, L, I guess that's pretty common, the association, the city agreed to indemnify and hold the district harmless because of the fact this is an agreement with the association and the city. They're putting together the plan for any claims arising out of the actions of the association because the association is overseeing this particular project. So I would understand how they would include that. So personally, I think K and L are two different things that seem to make some sense.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? If you look into it and
They do
understand it.
have related to the project.
You can look at it, the only thing is they're the ones that have to approve any project the city and the association come up with. So how to be held harmless on the whole thing, to me, is contradictory, you know.
Well, it's nice if you can get it, huh?
Well, yeah, it's kind of
All the
like, I'm going to
authority
be your
and
big brother and walk you through this whole thing, but if anything happens, I'm going to run the other way and point the finger at you saying, you did it, you did it. You know, it's...
Okay. Well, you have we have it on the agenda this evening. What is the wishes of the council? Is there anybody have any feelings one way or the other? As we had submitted this back to them asking for the changes, I think we have talked through the changes that we had asked. I think there's maybe a little bit of a difference of K and L, whether they should or shouldn't be in there. I think I've seen them in there in other agreements that seem to make some sense. I also think that if we change the language in G as all parties, that meets certainly some of our concern as well. Items B, F, and I were what we had requested to be addressed, which they have done.
Geez, do we dare send it back for,
Well, we dare do anything we want, don't we?
that's true.
Ultimately, I look at this as are we going to agree to a program that's going to put herbicides in the lake? I mean, I think that's fundamentally what it comes down to. I'm not in favor of that. And because of that, I'm going to recommend that, make a motion to deny this contract.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Dave and seconded by Warren to deny the contract. You've heard the discussion. Is there any discussion?
My viewpoint is it isn't so much the herbicides of the lake, it's just the pure fact. I think we just don't need another form of government mixed up with how the lake is going to be run. I think they could turn over the funds, and between the city and the association, working with the DNR, we could easily come up with a way to do the right things without having them look over our shoulders.
I think, we had a lot of discussion in regard to this when it was brought to us in the beginning. I think we heard from a number of folks outlining the agreement. I think the city does have definitely a stake in the well-being of the lake. Certainly, I can understand the concerns about how it's done, but I believe that would be done in a plan rather than, it's not necessarily saying it's going to be herbicides or it's going to, going to be how it's going to be done. I think that would be worked out in the plan. So I don't know that I know my feelings aren't the same on that particular, because it's not laid out to me as to what the plan is. I do think that the city does definitely have a stake in it, and I think we all agreed that the city's concerned about the well-being of the lake. I think we've worked with the watershed, and we've worked certainly with the Lake Association. I think having some input on the plan is important. We have significant dollars invested into what we've done to this point. Any other comments?
Well, I would agree with you. I think we need to be at the table. This is a setup for a plan, so if there are concerns about herbicides, which this body of water seems to me to receive quite a few anyways, but we should be at the table, and not to be engaged, I think, puts the city at a disadvantage. So I'm surprised by the comment, because I think that would have been a good comment to have when we had everyone here to talk about that. But so I'm in favor of the contract entering into that.
Any other comments before I call the motion?
Not sure it's that new. I mean, Bob Mosted brought it up when he was here too. He shares that concern. At this point, the watershed district hasn't even agreed to do this.
But I think we have a plan of 3 organizations that want to work together, and I also am in favor of being at the table when it comes time to have discussions about what and how we address the lake going forward.
I feel the city needs to be at the table too, but I think there's other ways of doing it without having a third party.
This doesn't take us out of the table.
No.
I mean, this is a specific agreement. It doesn't mean that there will be anything else going on.
We're not throwing everything away by making this motion.
Well, I think it does impact it to some degree, but
I'm not quite sure exactly what's the alternative then. If it's not in this agreement, how do you see the city participating?
if the watershed and the Lake Association want to move forward with a plan, and we're not there as part of that plan and being part of the project as a member, how do we participate?
Well, there won't be any plan is basically what
there
the information is.
There could be a plan. Could the watershed district then?
Logically, the watershed district doesn't want to do it. The Lake Association can't do it by themselves.
Well,
not without our approval again.
Why?
I mean, because it's a taxing district and it was for weed cutting. If it's not used for weed cutting, they don't have access to it.
Now, my understanding...
New plan will have to come up. That's what this is.
My understanding is the funds that are currently there would not come back to the city.
Well, that's not necessarily true. Those funds can't be kept indefinitely if they're not doing the project. So they would have to be returned at some point. They can't just keep them indefinitely.
Right, and the question of how they get returned and who they get returned to was
well, that's a separate issue, but
it's
spending the money instead doesn't...
I'm not quite sure that... I'm still concerned that I think there is really no clear alternative plan, and this is the best thing we have in front of us. And to go else, to just say that there's something else that we're going to do to be at the table, I'm still not clear about that. We've had quite a long discussion about this. Seem to have invested quite a bit into it at this point, and to throw it out seems to be not prudent.
I think what we have here is we have a maybe more information. In my opinion, I need more information to understand what's the alternative. I think if we don't, Vicki, and I'm going to ask you in a moment, because we need to know if we go forward and this plan doesn't go through, what will be the next steps? And so can you give us some insight from your perspective?
What she said at the last meeting and from the other meetings I attended with them, the city can choose not to be a part of the plan. that is totally up to you. At the last meeting, you decided you wanted to be a part of the
Right.
plan, so they came forward with this. If we choose not to, they'll have an agreement just directly with the association, and we'll be out of the picture.
No,
And then
I don't
the-
think that's true. That's what I was told is not going to happen.
And, okay, but then the next step, though, would be, they wanted to have this management agreement in place, then they're going to hold public hearings to amend how they can use the funds for weed management, but not necessarily weed harvester. But they wanted to have this plan in place of how that would be done before they went to the public hearings to amend that. So their goal is to go forward and have that public hearing so they can amend the use of the dollars, which were weed harvester, to now some other type of use. But she also indicated that the city doesn't have to be a part of it if we don't want to be. This agreement makes us a part of it. Our other option for being a part of it could be speaking at the public hearing when they go to amend the plan, perhaps. And then, I'm not sure where Mr. Thomas was just coming from on there, but I understood that it's totally optional for us to be in the plan or not. This is our opportunity to be at the table, as you said. If we choose not to, that's fine. The association would like us to be involved in it, but they want some kind of an agreement and to be involved, so they will, as I understand it, they will go with just the watershed if we opt out.
Thank you, Vicki. Is there any discussion? Do we have enough information? I know we have a motion, we have a second, and I will call the motion that we have on the table in front of us. But I also would ask that, for clarity, we have no need to make this decision tonight. To me, it sounds like there's some unanswered questions here. One about, can it move forward with or without us? I think there's some unclarity on that. And two, for me to understand, if we are not at and part of this plan, what input do we have in maintaining the viability of the lake as it is today? And I'm unsure of what that is based on our discussions, knowing that the last time we all sat here, we agreed to be part of the plan, and now we're changing. So from that perspective, I don't believe that we're ready to make a final decision tonight. I would ask that we table.
Let me amend my motion then to table this until a future meeting.
We have a motion and a second. We have a motion to amend the motion to table it till our next meeting. Do I have a second? So we have a motion, and I thank you, Dave, for doing that, for some clarification. Vicki, you hear what our concerns are. Will you be able to get these answers or get somebody from the
So
association?
your
here?
question is, if we're not at the table, where's our opportunity for input?
If we're not at the table, where's our opportunity to have input on the lake?
Okay.
In regards to the plan, and can a plan move forward if the city is not at the table? What is the next steps for the dollars that are currently been sitting in the fund that this plan was going to move forward with, and what's the next steps for the association and the watershed? Any other council member?
Yeah, I mean, that's the real problem I have is we don't seem to be able to get a straight answer. I mean, 6 months ago or so, we had a meeting, they were going to amend this. They came back a month or so ago, they hadn't amended anything. Now we have an amended one here at the last minute. We have always had projects where this plan is tied to the use of herbicides in the lake. Now, this one does not say that, it just says an operation implementation separately. We don't seem to get a full answer, a straight answer.
Would we also include all parties in that?
Yeah,
into that
we could also
aspect?
add and make the changes to item G as well.
Okay.
Any other council member, have any other additional input needed, so at the next meeting, we can make a sound decision on where this.
The one thing that I could see where they would, and in my opinion, is if the city stays involved in it, then it just keeps their assessing tax base larger. If the city drops out, they can't assess anybody in their first tier or second tier around the lake.
Yeah, that was the information I had. If we don't approve this
So
change,
for them, it's
they
vital
will have
that
to
we
go
stay
back.
involved so they can have some assessing power, and I'm not so certain I want to be on that because I need.
Okay. You want to get clarification on that?
No, I'm fine. I know what you're asking.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to table, and we have a second.
can just table it, can you?
I guess I'll call a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's the motion carries. Thank you. Probably should have called the motion to rescind the first motion, but I think we're all on the same page. Moving on then to new business. 9A, gas utility franchise fee.
The city has an existing gas franchise fee. It does require periodic review. From inception in 2009 to July 1st, 2012, the franchise fee was 1.5, at which time the rate was raised to 3%. The city can serve upon the company any proposed ordinance if we want to raise or change the fee in any form. I have that written on there, and it's a 60-day notice. The part that's in the box just says periodic review. The city council shall review this ordinance every 2 years in whatever manner the city administrator then determines to be appropriate, included but not limited to review by the city council in either work session or regular session. Failure to review this ordinance shall in not in any way invalidate or limit it. So I brought this up to the city council to see do you want to go through another review of that, to review the dollars that have been generated, et cetera, or are you fine with just letting it stand as it is? And so this is your periodic review, I guess I would say. The gas franchise fees that we received in 2013 was $54,464.79. And that was an increase from the prior year where we saw the rate increase. That prior year was $29,942.66.
Was there any way to assess if that franchise fee did in fact cover city expenses? I think that's where it came out, wasn't it, for easement or for city work allowing?
The franchise fee, what it's really supposed to do is to help cover our costs of their having their utilities in our right of way.
Yeah.
When we have big projects, we have additional costs that are incurred regarding that, or when we run lines, we have to maybe run them in a different way because their utilities are there. It's kind of difficult to say in any given year because we may spend a lot of money in 1 year and then nothing for 3 years. So we kind of have to look at it over the long term. Gas utilities, they take up space in the right of way, and that's what the fee is for, is to pay for that option for them and to help us recover some costs.
I think there's no doubt that all the utilities that are in the ground definitely impose an impact on doing additional city work, whether it's upgrading infrastructure, stormwater. We saw that right here on 4th Street. I mean, we all experienced that in almost all the projects. But in the same token, I agree with Vicki, to quantify how that changed that bid or that project is quite probably difficult because there's so much everywhere they go. It's just part of what they bid. So, I know we went up from 1.5% in 2012. The fee is now 3% in 2014. I guess the option would be to move it to the policy committee to see if the fee should be reevaluated or to continue as is for additional year.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, would it be able to gather that information?
Well, I think truthfully, we're just going to have to kind of put our heads together and decide whether we think $40,000 to $50,000 a year seems like enough.
Yeah, and I think it would be something you would probably look at and say, well, what is the fees, franchise fees potentially in other communities and other facilities and other, you pay franchise fees in all services, cable companies and gas companies and electric and the whole works has some type of fee, although we call it franchise fee there. But
yes, the thing we have to remember is that this does trickle down to the consumer.
Absolutely does. Mm-hmm. So that needs to be taken into consideration if the policy committee was to review this again to see if there should be an adjustment.
Would it be a policy or would it be a finance?
I guess it would be
I think it'd be finance, yeah.
It would be
Finance more because it affects the budget.
Yeah, the policy doesn't change, it's just.
Yeah, we have a policy, it's yeah.
So does the council feel to move it to the finance committee to review and come back with their findings?
Yep.
That's fine.
General consent, Mike? Vicki, general consent will move this discussion to the finance committee for their review. And we have the same exact discussion on the stormwater. A little unique. Vicki, if you want to outline that one as well.
Yep. The stormwater utility, we've had it for a full year and a little bit more than that. And what our goal was, we wanted to cover the cost of the trunk line that we just recently installed. So we've had our first full year of taking dollars out of that fund and transferring it to the bond fund. And then our goal was to collect enough to do that, and then have approximately $25,000 for maintenance-type issues that we were to do in the city, such as we repaired the stormwater under the viaduct and did some gutter work and different things like that. So this last year of 2013 was our first full year, and we did meet that. We met that within a few dollars, so we were right on with our budget and estimating how much money, available funds we would have for projects in the city. But as I said, the ordinance says from time to time, or as I indicated in my staff report, we should review that ordinance and see if it is meeting our criteria and whether we need to change it in any way, shape, or form. It hasn't been in effect that long. Like I said, we had our first full year, so I don't really have anything a trend to compare it to. But I did bring it back to the council simply because, we call for a time-to-time review.
With that, I just noted that we were moving the last one to the Finance Committee, but I guess I'm going to tell you I have a change of heart. We ain't had a year hardly into this, and I don't know if a review of this at this point in such a short time frame will give us a lot to reference, other than we had a budget and we spent all the dollars that were allocated, the $25,000. So I think my recommendation to the council would be to continue on with the stormwater utility fee for 2014 and evaluate in March of 2015.
Okay. I guess I would think it would be reasonable for us to put in an inflation adjustment. I mean, all the costs are going up. Every year fees go up a couple %. And that seems like a reasonable thing. This is partly to build up for future, partly to cover maintenance. Maintenance is going up every year. A lot of it covers a bond payment, which is not going up every year. But some of it covers areas that those expenses are growing. So I think we have to look at least a small increase just for inflation.
I agree with Brad. I think actually going for the whole, leave it alone for one more year and have 2 years to look at on total costs and whatever would give us a lot better picture before we do any increases or do anything with it at all.
I think just because we have a finance committee and because we have a difference of opinions maybe of what we should do, then I would recommend, based on that and Dave's input as well, that it should go to the finance committee and let them review and bring it back to the council for full discussion to make a recommendation then at that point.
That'll work.
Okay, general consent, we'll send that to the finance committee.
Glad I'm not on that committee.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on then to our consent agenda. Do we have anything else in our regular meeting outside of our consent agenda? So our consent agenda has several items this evening. A schedule of claims for a total of unpaid claims of $84,750.43. Paid claims of $2,405.71 for a total of $87,156.14. We did have our February checks totaling $616,156, which is check numbers 2115E through 2140E and 34812 through 34929, as well as in February we had 3 payroll transfers. We also have a resolution accepting contributions this evening, Resolution 2014-13. We had a donation from Coburn's, $352 for the ambulance, so I want to thank Coburn's for their contribution. We also have a gambling application for an exempt permit request from St. Paul Catholic United Financial, number 108, for a raffle on September 21st, 2014 at Holy Family School Cafeteria. We also have a gambling application for exempt permit request from the Sauk Center Chamber of Commerce for a raffle on July 20th, 2014 at the Sinclair Lewis Park. And we also have the Elmer's Ease Restaurant Bar and Event Centers requesting a temporary off-premise liquor permit to utilize their on-sale liquor license at Ladies' Night Out at the Civic Arena on April 24th. All 3, D, E, and F are common things that are happening every year, whether it's Sinclair Lewis, whether it's our Ladies' Night Out, or a Holy Family Schools fundraiser. So with that, is there any questions in regards to the consent agenda as presented? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Keith, seconded by Mike. Is there any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries, 5 in favor, none against. Okay, we just have a couple things this evening for informational items. As we stated, there's a number of events going on at the Civic Arena, and I just want to note what those are. Actually going on there today and tomorrow is the Midwest Machinery Open House. March 29th is the Team Ivy Rose sale. April 5th is the Hooper Garage sale. April 12th and 13th is the Nigel Gun Show. The 24th is Ladies Night Out of April. The 26th is the Big Rig Show, which is in the entire parking lot of the arena. And then, of course, April 27th is our circus from 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. And we also have a Stearns County Transportation Plan public meeting, which is set on March 20th, tomorrow, 6 p.m. at Albany City Hall. And that public notice was on the back of your packet. With that, Vicki, do you have anything else to add?
No.
No. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Dave, seconded by Mike. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.